Hello everybody, welcome back to the show. Thanks for joining me. Today is day 28. It's a spooky season movie marathon and we are almost to the end. And we're getting to the good stuff here, folks. Now, jury's out if this is one of those. But I, of course, am Tristan, your host. And today we watched a classic horror movie. Mario Bava's Black Sunday.
Not since Dracula stalked the earth has the world known so terrifying a day or night.
It is I who renounce you, and in the name of Satan I place a curse upon you.
Black Sunday is about the awakening of a pissed off witch. She done got what was coming to her, and some weird colonizing Europeans woke her ass up.
Do you hear that wailing? It's nothing, just the wind in the birches. Ah!
So this movie came out in 1960, which is the same year, of course, as Psycho and Eyes Without a Face, which last year was one of my favorite movies of the entire month.
De son visage.
If you haven't watched it, please check it out. And so this is a landmark year for horror in general. And to hear that I missed yet another classic got to me a little bit. And so I figured this one had to go on the list. And I'll put it to you this way. It's not as memorable or as powerful as those other two films.
It's the mask. The devil's mask.
It is a unique taste where both Psycho and Eyes Without a Face feel like they've been made now, feel ahead of their time still to this day. This one feels firmly in the late 50s, early 60s. It is very much a classic studio feel. It feels like the old Universal monster movies. It's very classic dark and stormy night type of horror. I mean, our characters have capes, for God's sake, and they're not Dracula. They're just a guy. So before we get into the characters and the script, the opening sequence is something special that we should talk about because it has some imagery that is...
But before putting them to death, human justice anticipated divine judgment by burning into the flesh of those damned ones the brand of Satan.
The set design is amazing. The costume design is awesome. I mean, these sets are huge. They're something special. And the opening, though not as impressive as some of the sets further on in the movie, is super moody. But it has that old school aesthetic. Dead trees in the background, fog rolling. I mean, there are even buff executioner men in hoods. This is literally old school horror. And in the opening sequence, it is pulled off wonderfully. It's creepy. It's stark and lit well. And you can tell for this time, some of this stuff pushed the boundaries. It is a extremely confident, competent movie, but it is a movie very much of its time. And almost, I don't want to give I don't want to take anything away from the movie, but to a detriment, I believe, a little bit. This is a movie that kind of demands a remake because it's got scary, iconic stuff in it. The lighting in this movie is incredible. He's not fucking around with the stark, contrasty shadows and underlighting that is iconic stuff. I mean, if every director that's ever made a horror movie hasn't stolen that lighting,
Does the prince need me?
then they should, because man, it is striking imagery. But it's very fluffy in its characters. It's very... I mean, we have a character in here that looks like a prince from a Disney movie. It doesn't feel realistic to anything now. It doesn't feel realistic to anything in the 60s. And yes, it's a period piece, but it doesn't really feel realistic to that either. It's kind of a cup of tea movie. If you can get past that kind of late 50s kitschy horror and get to and stick with the meat of it, which a lot of the stuff works still. I mean, The Witch is scary.
Rise, Yabuto. Yabuto. Rise.
Then some of that fluff acting and that theatricality takes over, and it kind of ruins it a little bit and makes it kind of boring. Again, this could be a very personal thing. I think I'm suggesting this movie. But it is a curious suggestion because I don't know your taste. And I'm usually great with any film from any time period, as long as it hits me, you know? This one, it didn't hit me as hard as the setup did. It trailed off. That kind of old Hollywood fluff kind of made it trail off for me, and I don't really remember much about it after the first half. I do remember a lot of the sequences with the witch, and those really kind of creep me out. Is it still effective as a horror movie? Yeah, the horror sequences work. The setup is great. Again, the sets are wonderful. The set design and the construction, everything about it looks amazing. The lighting, the cinematography is great. You know, he's got wonderful camera moves in here. And you can tell he was no slouch. But as filmmaking has evolved so much since then, it's definitely reliant on old school techniques. So please, give it a try and let me know what you think. I'd love to start a discussion about it, because I think it's a cup of tea type movie. And this one just wasn't necessarily my cup of tea. But I still suggest it, because I can respect how technically proficient it is.
She's breathing. We're in the presence of some unnatural mystery.
So yeah, there's our episode, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Like the episode, share the episode, subscribe to the channel. We only got a few more episodes coming, and we have a whole playlist of movies of the past month that, you know, if you need a spooky movie night, I can direct you where to go. Thanks again, guys. Have a good one. Stay spooky.